One of the things I love about the work I do is getting to speak to different groups about things I'm genuinely excited about. Recently, I had the opportunity to give a lecture to our local county medical society on well visits from birth through the toddler years, things I do every day. And I just really love this particular season of life, early development. Those first years when the brain is growing at an astonishing rate, when connection, language, and attachment are being built literally minute by minute. So when I prepare for talks like this, I tend to go down literature, search rabbit holes, and this time I stumbled into something that felt like a treasure trove, the world of cyber psychology, specifically how our relationship with our phones and tablets affect our human relationships. And it stopped me in my tracks. I'm Dr. Cameo Carter, board-certified pediatrician and obesity medicine specialist and mom of 3, and you're joining me at the end of my workday, where I do a short format podcast reflecting on issues that have come up in my work or home life and reflecting on those with you. And today I'm talking about screens. We talk a lot as pediatricians, and understandably, about kids and screen time. Kids aren't outside as much. They're on tablets and phones. They're watching videos instead of playing. And all of that matters. But here's the part we don't talk about nearly enough. So much of what children learn comes from watching us as parents, not from what we say, but from what we model. And that raises an uncomfortable but important question. What are we showing them? There are 2 terms that come up again and again in this research. The first is technoference. Technoference refers to everyday interruptions in interpersonal interactions caused by digital technology. Your phone buzzing, a quick glance at a notification, checking email just for a second. The second term is phubbing, P-H-U-B-B-I-N-G, which sounds funny until you realize what it means. Phubbing equals phone plus snubbing. It's when we're physically present, but psychologically somewhere else on our phones. And when it comes to families, we talk specifically about parental technoference. Here's where things get really interesting and honestly a little sobering. Multiple studies show that frequent parental phone use during interactions with young children is associated with reduced language exposure, fewer conversational turns, delayed expressive speech, more behavioral dysregulation. Why? Because language doesn't develop from passive exposure. It develops from back and forth interaction, from eye contact, from pauses, from reading a child's cues and responding to them. When a parent's attention is repeatedly pulled away, even briefly, these micro moments of connection are lost. And over time, that adds up. Attachment research tells us that children don't need perfect parents. They need responsive ones. But when a child repeatedly reaches for a parent who is absorbed in a screen, something subtle happens. Children may escalate behaviors to get attention. They may withdraw. They may show increased irritability. They may struggle with emotional regulation. And here's the heartbreaking part. Some studies show that children eventually stop trying. They learn very early that the phone often wins. Now let's flip the lens because this matters just as much. Parental technoference doesn't just affect kids. It affects parents. Research links higher phone distraction with increased parental stress, decreased patience, more reactive parenting, less satisfaction in parent-child bonding. And I think this is important to say out loud. Most parents are not scrolling because they don't care. They're scrolling because they're overwhelmed. They're tired. They're working. They're managing logistics. They're trying to stay connected to the outside world. This isn't about shame. It's about awareness. Because here's something I've noticed over the countless patient visits. Parents love when I talk to their kids about screen time. They'll say, can you tell them they need to get off their iPad? Can you explain why screens aren't good for their brain? But almost no one says, can you talk to me about my screen time? And listen, I get it. Because once we start talking about parental screen use, we're talking about our habits, about our coping, about avoidance, about connection, and that hits closer to home. Modeling really does matter more than rules. Kids don't learn healthy tech boundaries from rules alone. They're important, but they also learn from watching how often we pick up our phones, when we put them down, what interrupts what. If your child sees phones at the dinner table, phones during conversations, phones during play, then that becomes normal, not because they're defiant, but because they're observant. So what can we actually do? Here are some realistic, doable strategies. Not perfection, just intention. 1, create sacred tech-free moments, meals, bedtime routines, reading together. Protected windows of presence. Number 2, narrate your phone use. If you must check your phone, say, I'm answering a quick message, then I'm right back here. That simple acknowledgement preserves connection. 3, phone placement matters. Out of sight really does reduce impulse use. So put it in a different room, put it in a pocket, put it on a table. Also, repairing counts. If you catch yourself distracted, reconnect. Say, thanks for waiting. I want to hear what you were saying. Number 5, extend this beyond kids. How we use phones with partners, friends, coworkers, that's part of the modeling too. Human face-to-face interaction is where empathy is built, where language grows, where patience is practiced, where relationships deepen. Screens aren't the enemy, but unchecked distraction is. And if we want our kids to learn how to be present, connected, and emotionally attuned, we have to show them what that looks like. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Because little eyes are always watching, and what we model today becomes their default tomorrow. If you find these podcasts helpful, informative, or interesting, please share with a friend and let me know if there are topics you'd like me to cover at the end of the day. Take care, and I'll talk to you next week.